I thought it would be fitting today to have a very brief, short Bible instruction because these are difficult passages. 3 little points. The first goes right to the heart of the gospel when we hear, whoever loves his father, mother, sister, brother, child more than me is not worthy of me. We know, don't you know? It's not that Jesus doesn't want us to love our relatives, honor our father and mother, but he's saying that if we don't love God first, if we're not in awe of Jesus and his whole story and how it's meant to echo through the centuries, if we don't honor that, if we don't truly keep Christ at the center of our lives, we are not loving our families the way we ought to love them. We can love with possessiveness, we can love with manipulation, we can love with control, but you know that, right? How many times have you heard this? Every time it comes up, you need to think, aha, yes, I know what Jesus is saying, and we can say a little prayer. Jesus, help me to keep you at the center of my life, for that's why we're here. The other biblical tool applies both to Jesus and to the prophet Isaiah. When we hear harsh language, when we hear anything about an angry God, the wrath of God, the disgust of God towards all of our errant ways, it's the Bible's way of saying, wake up, reorder your lives. Now, some people like to stand in fear and trembling and take this in such a literal way that they envision God as always angry, always ready to get us or dismiss us. But in essence, the Bible uses hyperbole. It uses exaggeration to make its point, to drive it home. It's meant to create a little conflict in us when we hear this. And I believe that the wrath of God, if we take the Bible as a whole, isn't the anger as humans have it. It's a zeal for souls. The angry language in the Bible is a zeal for our souls, and it works this way when we become selfish, when we're harboring resentments, when we want to have revenge, when we're just fed up with anybody's story but our own. There should be, of people of faith, a conflict within us. We should not feel so good about it. We'd be wrestling. That's what God is doing. That's what this harsh language is meant to do, to awaken our consciences. And it's actually a gift, although we don't necessarily see it. If we're not grappling with all our shadows of ourselves, the negative aspects of ourselves, then we know we're not heeding this strong language of the scriptures. But remember, Jesus says, don't be afraid. So when we're tempted to be afraid of God or feel in terror of God, we recognize we have to settle down. And when we're not settled, that's the wrath of God working in our conscience, helping us to grapple. What's wrong with me? Why aren't I more caring? Why aren't I more patient? It's meant to bring us back to Jesus. Everything's meant to bring us back to Jesus. And the third and final point, aren't you glad I only have 3 today? The third point is to see that everything we do is meant to be worship. Everything we're meant to be is meant to be communion if we're really centered in Christ. So here we're told at the end of Isaiah, care for the wronged, people who have been wronged, people who have been victimized. Care for the orphan. Care for the widow. Give the cold water to the one who needs it. Now, we know most all of us have a spirit of generosity. I don't really know any full Catholic or Christian who doesn't have at least one major charity that they give to on a regular basis, in addition to giving and supporting of their church. So we need to see whatever those charities are. Yes, it's part of our own goodwill, but everything comes from God. Each time we make a contribution or volunteer our time, we need to pause and say, this is part of my worship of you, Lord. This is an extension of my Eucharist. The more we bring ourselves to that deeper consciousness, the more at ease we are in the ups and downs of life. The more we see everything as worship, but especially our charity, because it does bring us into communion with others. We're more attuned to providence, God's zeal for our souls, and we can appreciate this and every Eucharist a lot more fully, because it's not just about here and now, it's about always.